Oh. This morning, I think it's around 8 o'clock in my Bangkok studio. I just got finished the sculpture Triumph. As you can see, actually I got finished it a couple days ago, but I just wanted to make sure there was nothing that I wanted to change, so I wrapped it up, looked at it every single day, and was extremely satisfied with it. You can see that all the work is basically finished. There's a little bit of texture left on the piece. That texture is to keep some spontaneity within the piece. But one of the things I like about this sculpture, let me just get a little bit closer here. One of the things I like about it is it shows some very, very rich symbols here. Obviously you have the Christ figure, but the hands at the bottom that symbolize God, the actual doves which symbolize the Holy Spirit, are all in this one single piece here. And what I like about that is it shows the rich symbols of the Catholic Church, which is absolutely phenomenal for art subject matter, and this is no exception. This piece here, the face of the Christ, is one of the things that I worked for a while to try to perfect, and I believe I got the expression, the mode that I envisioned initially when I started working on this piece. The anatomy of the figure is pretty close to realism, except it's left a little bit spontaneous, and that kind of brought in some coherence with the rest of the piece. The figure of the Christ seems like he's merging out of the spiritual striation forms rather than competing with it. And you can see here how the Christ figure just merges from these spiritual motion forms that I created, these striations, which the doves come out of as well, which emerge from the hands and the clouds. Everything starts from that source there with the clouds. The hands symbolizing the Father feel like they're unfolding, or look like they're unfolding, the Holy Spirit, as well as the Christ symbol here. If you notice the gesture of the Christ, his hands, instead of having them both symmetrical, I chose to go with asymmetry. Let me see if I can get closer up here. The one hand is open, free, thrust out to the sky. The other, there's a little bit of tension in, and what I like about that is that it shows some sort of realism instead of design within the piece. It's primarily a frontal piece. It's a piece that celebrates not only Christianity, but specifically the heritage and the symbols of the Catholic Church. The work of the piece, the initial concept of the piece is years in the making. I wanted to work on a sculpture. Oh, we're getting a little bit dark here. I wanted to work on a sculpture that showed some very much creative spirit within the traditional symbols here. I've never seen a sculpture like this before, but I've always had the desire to see something like this that is rich in its spirit, also its movement. There's action happening within the whole piece here, and that's what I really like about it. But you have the traditional Christ figure, but then you have, and the traditional doves, which are symbols. But to have it all work together like this is something that you very rarely see in Christian sculpture, especially today. So I was very, very happy to see the piece as it is in its final form here. And the next step will be making a mold of it. When did I know to stop working on the piece? How do you know when you're an artist to stop the piece? Well, when you just basically can't really find anything more to do on the piece, and that's actually where I was for a couple days. There was nothing more I could do on it. I felt I did most everything I envisioned the piece and to have it look like. The hands, they were difficult to do because I had to leave them a little bit rough. The more detail I would put in on them, the more it would seem separate from the clouds and separate from the doves. So everything is left in a very spontaneous, almost impressionistic element, including the Christ figure there. The more I found I put on the anatomy, the more he seemed to lift right out of the sculpture. And similar to the doves here, as you can see, there's not very much detail put on them. And the purpose of an artist is to know when to quit on specific areas, nor is the Christ. Just the impression. But if you would put too much detail in the different elements, the elements would look like they're just stuck on, and that's the worst thing I would want, is for someone to think that I just bought a bunch of birds or I sculpted a bunch of doves and then stuck them on this great sculpture. And so by leaving it a little bit smooth, rough in some areas, smooth in others, by leaving it a little bit more impressionistic rather than dealing with all the ringlets and different feathers of the actual birds, I've brought the whole thing together to work in harmony, as I don't think it would work anywhere else here. As you can see, the hands. The back of the piece, if I can walk around, I'm probably going to lose it with the light, is left relatively simple, but you still have those striations going on in the design pattern. I don't know if you'll be able to see it here. Oh yeah. Just simple forms to suggest the movement, more or less. The anatomy of the back of the Christ, ooh, I really like. It's left basically, again, in a very simple form, but it works. It works within the piece. It's a spiraling effect that I like on it too. I think it gives a good movement to it. It's certainly a sculpture that is alive. It's not a sculpture that looks boring by any sense. If I can get this in. The size is a great size too. When I was working on it, I didn't want to have it too big. The Christ figure is about life size. I'll get in there so you can see the size of it. It could either be displayed at this level, I would be satisfied with it, or up higher. It really wouldn't matter to me. But you can see the size of it. The Christ figure is a little bit larger than life. The whole piece, I think, exceeds 10 feet. I haven't really checked it out though, but it's having it very close to life size creates a wonderful relationship with the viewer because it's something that easily identifies with us here. It's a celebration of Christianity, I think this piece is. It's a triumph. The sculpture is called Triumph, and it's a triumphant, glorious, very optimistic, victorious celebration of Christ. It's the risen Christ. You can see his wounds. It's a pose that shows strength. I didn't want to necessarily do a pose that was like this, because that's like so feminine. This one with the one hand kind of thrust out there to the heaven, the other one back with a little bit of tension in that hand. As you notice, the thumb is reaching one of the, or pressed against one of the fingers. It's almost like a birth in its struggle. It's almost like an awakening. One of the sculptures that comes to mind that I don't know if I was necessarily very much conscious of was The Age of Bronze by Rodin, where you have this standing nude male figure that slowly seems like he's awakening. And there is a little bit of that stretch going in the piece, which makes it seem like he is awake. His eyes, I wanted to keep closed. I had a lot of difficulty working on the expressions of the face because I wanted to have it peaceful. I wanted to have the eyes closed, so it's not really looking up at the heaven. I thought that would have been a little bit too over the top. To have his eyes closed, it becomes a sculpture that you have to enter. It kind of gives you that space to join in on it. The doves, to tell you the truth, I wanted to put more detail in, but as soon as I put more detail in them, they would leave this form here, this smooth form going up, this ascension type form. So to have them just impressionistically left, it just actually works perfect with the piece. And so everything merges together. It's actually one sculpture. It's not fragmented, several pieces assembled together. The piece was great to do. From the initial model, from this piece, the 4-foot version of it, to this piece here, it was a wonderful experience because what happens when you move a piece to a large scale like this, it just takes on a different personality, it takes on a different power. And this one, it's been years of me dreaming to do a piece this big of the Triumph sculpture. Finally it's done. I think that it has the triumphant spirit that was very difficult to achieve in the small one at this size here. And so it was like, even though it was basically identical to the small one, I'll show you, when it became a large version, it just took on a lot more weight. Now when I'm working on a large piece, what I usually do is I work from my models that get extremely tattered in the process because I'm moving them around. I just do a plaster cast of it. But you can see here the model in the poor shape it is. One of the hands broke off, one of the thumbs broke off, but well, see if we can get a little bit closer. Plaster cast is what you do for a model. A working studio model. Sometimes what you even do is label things on, like the striations you'd number, the ribs you would number. But that's basically my working model there. And although, let me see if I can get back here. Although it's basically exact to the large one, it just misses some of the power. And I think the next step up would have to be around 25 feet on this piece. And I think that a 25-foot version where you're really not trying to get it close to life size at all, but huge, would also be a powerful, even more powerful piece than this perhaps. Who knows? Might in the future have that privilege to enlarge this to the monumental 30-foot size. But this is a great size right here for me. I'm very satisfied with it. The process when you're working on a piece like this is very difficult, especially in the heat these couple days, because you got to climb up the ladders, or for me it's these containers here, climb them up, put a piece of clay on, step back 20 feet and see what you did. And it's great that I have a large studio like this because there's so much room for me to walk around and check out the different angles. So I can go way back, like you can see here, even go outside. This is what I would be doing. As I'd be working on it, I'd be looking at it from all different perspectives, looking up, looking down. I might just do a little bit more work on it. I'm very apprehensive before they make the molds of the piece here. And that's a problem with art. When is the piece done? Like I mentioned before, I would be working on this piece at nighttime, and in the morning I would tear down what I did and put it back to how it was an hour or two before. And so it's almost like, when you're basically changing and changing the piece and then putting it back to before the change, that you're basically finished the piece. And also by the general feel about it. And I really believe that this piece right now has a feeling that is great. I don't want to put any more anatomy on the figure, then I'd have to put more anatomy on the birds, and then everything would have to change a little bit. And the fear is that what I have here will be jeopardized. And so at a certain point in the piece, like this is right now, every little touch I do on it, I hold my breath because I don't want to ruin the feel. I don't want to ruin the design. So I'm very, very sensitive. But I might just do a little bit of touch-ups, and then they'll go to the mold stage, casting it in the metal. So this piece is done, but I'm certainly not. I'll be working on a couple other large pieces, and I have to do a couple other large pieces like this before I go back to Canada. This one was extremely exciting. I hope the other ones will be as exciting for me as this one was. And I think that excitement is evident within the piece. Very happy. Let me just take some close-ups. I can get really high up, different angles. The hands were difficult. Working on the hands, even though they're simple, I wanted the anatomy of the hands, even though they're smoothed out, I wanted them to be very, very realistic. Therefore, what I did was I took my own hands, made molds of them, and I would use these as my models. So I'd put in detail, take out some, add some, take out some, until I got the look I wanted on the piece. Now I say that it's almost exact to the model. It's true. Some things I changed, some things you have to change when you're dealing with a larger scale, like the face. The face, I got the general position, added some of the details on the eyes, but generally it's all there. It's a large piece. Well, I'm gonna have to do a little bit of touch-ups on this, and then I'll be ready for the molds.